In today's scientific world, the presence of conspiracy theories seems to run counter to the majority of people across many fields. Why do some people believe that the moon landing was fake? Why do others believe that secret societies like the Illuminati control global events? Why do people think the Earth is flat? These questions are truly difficult to answer because they lie in the realm of perception and personal belief, with no universal standard to judge them by. Conspiracy theories carry a unique appeal by offering listeners alternative explanations for unclear phenomena. In today's video, we will explore the psychological factors that contribute to the growing and spreading belief in conspiracy theories. By delving into motivations, analyzing examples, cognitive biases, and social influences, we may gain a deeper understanding of a phenomenon that continues to captivate minds around the world. Get ready as we begin to explore the question: how are conspiracy theories manipulating the world? First, we'd like to sincerely thank you for your support and companionship. Don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the channel right now to help us grow. We hope you enjoy today's content and find it thought-provoking. Let's begin with the question: what is a conspiracy theory? A conspiracy theory is seen as a natural human response to a chaotic world. It consists of stories that connect various events in seemingly meaningful ways, often based on claims that are unverified or even unverifiable. Conspiracy theories give believers a sense of knowing or understanding most phenomena in the world. Whenever faced with complex events, people tend to explain them by attributing them to some secretive group with hidden and often malicious motives. Based on that, we can easily identify two key characteristics of conspiracy theories. First, they try to explain the origin of a major unresolved event, often involving multiple fields. For example, when the HIV epidemic first broke out, people mostly heard about it through media descriptions. And when the source of the disease was still unknown, they created all kinds of conspiracy theories surrounding it. Second, conspiracy theories romanticize a battle between good and evil in the world, in which governments or secret societies often play the role of the villain. Research shows that people are more likely to believe in conspiracy theories when they feel anxious or powerless. This is especially true during periods of political or economic instability. People may find comfort in conspiracy theories as they offer a clear villain or group to blame for their struggles. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next exciting adventures. One question that many people often ask is, why do people believe so strongly in conspiracy theories? The first answer to this may be related to the cognitive biases that humans commonly experience. These biases are considered mental shortcuts or patterns of thinking that deviate from rational judgment. They often happen automatically and unconsciously, shaping the way we interpret information. They influence our thoughts, beliefs, and actions, including our tendency to believe in conspiracy theories. Of course, this is only a general observation. Let me show you more clearly the role of cognitive biases through a specific example: confirmation bias. You've probably heard about confirmation bias before. This psychological effect causes people to interpret new evidence as supporting their existing beliefs or hypotheses. Typically, confirmation bias arises when someone tries to compile facts and evidence in a way that best supports their own theory. Even when presented with a wide range of information, people with confirmation bias tend to only select the parts that align with their beliefs. To fully analyze confirmation bias, we'd probably need an entire video dedicated to it. In today's content, we'll focus only on the extent to which confirmation bias influences belief in conspiracy theories. In a study published in 1987, participants were given information about a fictional disease and asked to identify related symptoms. The results showed that participants who had a strong initial belief that the disease was real selectively searched for and processed information that supported their pre-existing views. They focused more on symptoms that aligned with their belief and ignored contradictory evidence. This study demonstrated that confirmation bias exists in many people, and no one is immune. Therefore, the number of people who believe in conspiracy theories is far from small. Social motivation and psychological factors also play a role in whether someone believes in conspiracy theories. Research shows that feelings of helplessness, distrust, and social isolation can increase the likelihood of someone embracing conspiracy-based beliefs. When individuals feel disconnected or marginalized, conspiracy theories can offer a sense of belonging and a community that shares and accepts their beliefs. These theories often thrive within specific communities. Within such limited spaces, beliefs are reinforced and amplified through social influence. When someone interacts with like-minded individuals who affirm their beliefs, it strengthens their own faith in conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories don't just affect personal well-being, they can also have far-reaching consequences in the real world. This can lead to dangerous outcomes. You can easily recognize the widespread misinformation about vaccine safety. Fueled by conspiracy theories, these narratives have contributed to lower vaccination rates and a rise in preventable diseases. In this way, conspiracy theories directly endanger public health and well-being. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next exciting adventures. Similarly, conspiracy theories that deny climate change also hinder collective action and delay effective responses to the environmental crisis by spreading uncertainty and misinformation. The danger posed by conspiracy theories continues to grow, but just how serious is that danger? With an abstract question like this, there's only one way to approach it. We need to look at reality and analyze the major conspiracy theories currently in circulation to determine the enormous impact they may have. Let's begin with a case that has the least direct effect on you and me. The conspiracy theory that Americans never landed on the moon. Landing on the moon can be compared to the invention of language or agriculture. Each is a major milestone in human history. And yet, more than 50 years after that achievement, a significant portion of people still believe it was a hoax staged by the U.S. government. Their belief not only disrespects science and the contributions of space exploration to humanity, but it is also deeply irrational. The community that denies the moon landing has its own reasoning, persuasive enough to build a large following. So what are the arguments that lead people to believe the U.S. never sent humans to the moon? The first point to note is that America went to the moon at a rather unfortunate time. They chose a period when public trust in the government was severely declining due to a series of major events. Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, the Russians had achieved most of the milestones in the space age. The space age itself began in 1957 when the Soviet Union successfully launched the world's first artificial satellite, Sputnik. It wasn't until 1962 that John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth, rekindling hope for the United States in the space race. Also in 1962, President John F. Kennedy addressed the nation with his plan to conquer the moon. We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. The speech reflected the 35th president's belief in a new era of science, and the fact that John Glenn successfully orbited the Earth served as clear evidence of his words. Just 1 month after J.F. Kennedy's speech, the Cuban Missile Crisis unfolded, pushing Earth to the brink of nuclear war. The world teetered on a knife's edge. Exactly 1 year after the missile crisis, J.F. Kennedy was assassinated. Even when the CIA released its investigation into Lee Harvey Oswald, the man charged with firing the shot that shocked the world, many refused to believe he acted alone. They believed there was a greater force behind it all. Americans began to lose trust. They started questioning everything the government said, including the monumental achievement of landing a man on the moon in 1969. Then another uncomfortable truth emerged. Wernher von Braun, the hero of America's space exploration programs, had once been a top rocket advisor to Adolf Hitler. And as if that wasn't enough, in the midst of an ongoing energy crisis, people were more preoccupied with day-to-day survival than marveling at humankind's remarkable space accomplishments over time. A series of unfortunate events continued to shake the American public's trust. Before the internet era, people often turned to books for entertainment. Although books lacked brevity and the rapid spread of information we have today, stories drenched in conspiracy still held powerful appeal. The book We Never Went to the Moon by Bill Kaysing, published in 1974, marked the first time a long and detailed document discussed what many Americans had already begun to suspect. Kaysing was a technical writer for the rocket engineering company Rocketdyne during the 1950s, so his words carried weight, even though he repeatedly admitted he knew nothing about rocket technology. However, when he claimed that the moon landing footage was actually filmed at a secret location inside Area 51, people immediately believed him. A survey conducted in July 1970 revealed that 30% of Americans polled believed the moon landing was a hoax. A second survey conducted in 1976 showed that 28% of respondents believed that this historic event in human history had been staged by the U.S. government. This result was the product of two factors: Bill Kaysing's book and the declining trust in the government, as mentioned earlier. Kaysing presented many arguments to convince readers that the moon landing was a hoax. Relying on his reputation as someone who had worked in rocket engineering, he claimed that most rocket tests had failed. There was no way, he argued, that the U.S. could have developed a rocket powerful enough to send people to the moon. Furthermore, he repeatedly emphasized that in NASA's published photos, not a single star appears. There are no stars in the images. If they were really taken from the moon, there should have been stars visible. Kaysing claimed that NASA's oversight in staging the scene accidentally created extremely convincing evidence, enough for him to write an entire book. But in reality, it was simply a matter of physics. Astronauts standing on the moon are exposed to intense sunlight, and that strong light overwhelms the faint glow of stars, making them virtually invisible in photos. When the brightness of lunar photos is increased, differences like these become immediately noticeable. But clearly, such small details are hardly enough to convince most people that humanity never actually set foot on the moon. So did Kaysing provide any additional evidence? One of his most well-known claims, and one of the most widely circulated, is that visionary director Stanley Kubrick, the mastermind behind the space epic 2001, A Space Odyssey, was the one who filmed the fake moon landing footage. Another so-called irrefutable proof used by Kaysing is this photo. He presented it as evidence that the moon landing was actually staged on a large film set. In reality, it's an image of Neil Armstrong, taken 3 months before he embarked on his mission that would change the course of humanity. Looking at the way he's holding the camera and positioned in front of the shot, It's easy to imagine this being part of a movie set. But casing wasn't the only star in the sky of deception. Another rising figure was Ralph Rene. This man diligently published 2 books to support his belief. The first was titled Mensa Lectures, which he originally translated as Lessons from Mensa. Later, the book had to be renamed The Last Skeptic of Science after the MSA organization prohibited Rene from using their name on the cover. It was his second book that propelled Rene to conspiracy stardom. The book, NASA Mooned America, claimed that NASA had deceived the American public. It is still available on Amazon today and contains many of the same arguments Casing had presented earlier. Both Bill Casing and Ralph Rene are no longer alive to lead the next generation. But the legacy these 2 destructive men left behind still lingers. Although the number of people who believe the moon landing was a hoax has significantly declined, the belief has not completely disappeared. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next exciting adventures. But now, they have access to a platform for spreading information unlike anything seen before in history, the internet. In the age of information technology, content like this spreads rapidly and unpredictably. Smoking gun evidence from the past, though already debunked, still goes viral at breakneck speed. Naturally, every time harmful information is shared, people almost never include the real context. Instead, they simply post photos like these, along with captions they've made up themselves. And with just a bit of critical thinking, we can answer everything. For example, why don't Neil Armstrong's footprints match the sole of his space boots? Simply because he wore an additional outer boot over his suit when walking on the moon. Or, there's no wind on the moon, so why is the flag waving? The answer is that the astronauts were twisting the flagpole to plant the American flag into the lunar surface. As you can see, there's nothing mysterious here. But thanks to the internet, rather than seeking reliable sources confirming the moon landing, many people are more intrigued by the opposing view. Information that denies scientific achievements, like the conspiracy theory that humans never landed on the moon, doesn't have much direct impact on the world. It merely influences perception without being able to change reality. More dangerous conspiracy theories, however, often have the power to alter social reality on various levels. That can be on a global scale, or as small as the personal beliefs of an individual. One such example is the conspiracy theory that denies climate change. Climate change, often referred to as global warming, is increasingly becoming the most serious challenge facing our planet. This issue is incredibly complex, mainly because of humanity's continued release of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which causes significant consequences and affects all aspects of the global environment, society, and economy. But now, they have access to a platform for spreading information unlike anything seen before in history, the internet. In the age of information technology, content like this spreads rapidly and unpredictably. Smoking gun evidence from the past, though already debunked, still goes viral at breakneck speed. Naturally, every time harmful information is shared, people almost never include the real context. Instead, they simply post photos like these, along with captions they've made up themselves. And with just a bit of critical thinking, we can answer everything. For example, why don't Neil Armstrong's footprints match the sole of his space boots? Simply because he wore an additional outer boot over his suit when walking on the moon. Or, there's no wind on the moon, so why is the flag waving? The answer is that the astronauts were twisting the flagpole to plant the American flag into the lunar surface. As you can see, there's nothing mysterious here. But thanks to the internet, rather than seeking reliable sources confirming the moon landing, many people are more intrigued by the opposing view. One of the most well-known scandals, known as ClimateGate, occurred at the Climatic Research Unit, CRU, of the University of East Anglia in 2009. The incident began when a hacker broke in and stole CRU emails, later spreading them across multiple websites just before the Copenhagen Climate Summit. Climate change skeptics quickly accused Professor Phil Jones and his colleagues of manipulating climate data and research findings. In response, CRU supporters argued that the hacking and selective quoting of emails was defamatory and aimed at discrediting the scientific evidence behind climate change. Although 8 independent committees conducted investigations and released official reports, none found any evidence of fraud or scientific misconduct. However, climate change skepticism persists and remains difficult to fully eliminate. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next exciting adventures. The main tools used by climate change deniers to attack scientific credibility include accusations of data fabrication and violations of peer review standards. Among all countries, the climate denial industry is most prominent in the United States. Since January 2015, the U.S. Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works has been chaired by Jim Inhofe, a lobbyist and well-known climate change denier. He is famous for calling climate change the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on the American people. And in 2015, he attempted to disprove it by bringing a snowball to the Senate floor and tossing it during a speech. These campaigns, aimed at eroding public trust in climate science, are often associated with conservative economic policies and are supported by industrial interests opposing carbon emissions regulations. Climate denial has become closely tied to fossil fuel lobbyists, pro-industry advocates, and libertarian-leaning policymakers, many of whom are based in the United States. Returning to the core issue, to stay clear-headed in the face of this alarming conspiracy theory, we need to answer the most fundamental questions. First, is climate change real? And second, is it really as impactful as people claim? Many have dismissed the crisis as a hoax by scientists to justify their research funding, or even as a government conspiracy aimed at controlling the population. If that were true, it would have to be one of the most elaborate deceptions in history, coordinated by dozens of governments and nations with thousands of researchers. Tens of thousands of peer-reviewed and publicly available studies have led to a broad scientific consensus that human-caused climate change is real. The most comprehensive source of information on the topic is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. This organization operates with full transparency. All of its evidence and investigative methods are published openly on its official website. The latest 3,500-page report released by the IPCC this year has been approved by delegates from 195 countries. The report also lists 234 authors from 66 nations who contributed to its development. This committee was established through a United Nations resolution with the purpose of providing strong evidence to counter climate change conspiracy theories. One common argument used by climate change deniers is that Earth's climate has always changed over time, and even if the Earth is currently warming, it's simply part of a natural cycle. But is this argument valid? Scientists are well aware that Earth's climate has alternated between ice ages and warm periods for millions of years. Over the past 1 million years, an ice age has occurred roughly every 100,000 years. So, is today's temperature rise just another phase in that cycle? The answer is no. The speed, relative abruptness, and global scale of the warming over the past 50 years make this episode uniquely different for at least the past 2,000 years. There has never been a period when Earth warmed as rapidly and intensely as it is now. This conclusion is based on various forms of data, including paleoclimatic analyses of sediment, ice cores, and tree ring cross-sections. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, temperature was reconstructed using indirect data. Since 1850, it has been recorded directly. As the evidence for abnormal warming became undeniable, some skeptics began to admit that the phenomenon was indeed occurring. However, they continued to deny that it was caused by human emissions of carbon from burning fossil fuels. In response, the IPCC developed a climate model that measures the effects of different factors. This model calculates the level of warming both with and without human influence. The result is clear. Humans have warmed the atmosphere, oceans, and land, according to this year's IPCC report. Nevertheless, many still point to record-breaking cold weather in recent years as supposed evidence against global warming. Others argue that even if climate warming is happening, it isn't necessarily bad. But climate change is not the same as weather. It refers to long-term systemic shifts in global weather patterns. Over time, a single snowy day or even a blizzard-filled week is not enough to prove that average global temperatures aren't rising over the decades. A slight global warming might even seem beneficial. Frozen parts of Siberia could become arable and boost food production. However, the melting of permafrost in those regions could cause far more problems than it solves. Critics often voice skepticism by signing public letters or writing opinion pieces in opposition. Yet when their credentials are examined, many of them turn out not to be climate scientists at all. In academic circles, one of the most important criteria for evaluating the legitimacy of climate-related claims is scientific consensus. And today, that consensus is becoming overwhelming. A recent survey conducted by Cornell University, based on thousands of peer-reviewed studies on climate change, found that over 99% of the authors agree that this destructive phenomenon is caused by humans. The rise of climate change denial has significantly hindered humanity's efforts to address and repair the very damage it has created. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next exciting adventures. Therefore, the fight against conspiracy theories that directly affect real-life practices should be taken as seriously as any major crisis. Especially when a conspiracy theory endangers human lives, it deserves even greater attention and scrutiny. You're probably familiar with vaccines, one of humanity's greatest medical achievements. Vaccines are not a new invention in medicine. They were first introduced over 200 years ago, in the late 18th century, at a time when monkeypox was still a terrifying nightmare that claimed the lives of more than 400,000 Europeans each year. Traditional vaccines are special biological preparations derived from disease-causing microorganisms. They are carefully formulated to ensure safety for human use. Once introduced into the body, they stimulate the immune system to produce antibodies and build active immunity against disease. Approximately 80 to 95% of those who receive a vaccine will develop specific immunity, protecting them from infection. Vaccination remains the most effective method of disease prevention today, shielding the body from attacks by harmful pathogens. First and foremost, getting vaccinated protects yourself. Then it protects your family, your community, and society as a whole. The achievements brought about by vaccines since their invention are undeniable. The first example is smallpox. For thousands of years, smallpox was an infectious disease that devastated the world, with a mortality rate of up to 30%. Those who survived were often left with facial disfigurement or lifelong blindness. The disease was caused by the variola virus. In 1967, the World Health Organization, WHO, launched a global vaccination campaign that lasted for about 10 years and truly saved humanity. Although an estimated 300 million people died of smallpox in the 20th century, no one has died from the variola virus since 1978. Next is polio, a disease caused by the poliovirus, which spreads through the digestive tract. The virus attacks the nervous system and can cause paralysis or even death within a matter of hours. Out of every 200 people infected, one is left permanently paralyzed, and about 5 to 10% die from respiratory muscle failure. Following the global victory over smallpox, the eradication program for polio was launched by WHO and several major donors. The development of a vaccine against polio marks a major milestone in the history of medicine. By the year 2000, global cases of polio had dropped by more than 90%, and the wild polio virus had been eradicated in all countries. If vaccines and immunization are considered one of the greatest medical achievements of the 20th century, then anti-vaccine conspiracy theories are truly a dangerous threat. Many people believe that vaccines cause autism. However, extensive studies involving millions of children worldwide have found no link between vaccines and autism. Others argue that natural immunity is better than vaccine-induced immunity. While it's true that catching certain illnesses can sometimes lead to long-term immunity, that's not always the case, and it often comes with serious health risks. For example, contracting chickenpox might provide lifetime immunity, but it can also lead to severe complications such as skin infections or pneumonia. In contrast, vaccines offer similar protection without the risk of serious illness. Is it too extreme to say that opposing vaccines is almost like opposing humanity itself? Of course, standing against harmful conspiracy theories doesn't mean we have to completely reject all conspiracy theories throughout history. You're absolutely free to believe in mysteries from ancient Egypt, extraterrestrials, or other strange phenomena, because these belong to the realm of imagination. They create a vivid inner world within each of us. What we need to fight against are the misleading pieces of information that are holding this world back. Thank you for watching today's episode. Goodbye and see you in the next video. Wishing you a wonderful day with your family. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next exciting adventures.